Good. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. My name is Matt Harris. I'm Deputy County Administrator here at Chesterfield County, and I'll be with you for the next hour as we walk through a presentation on the county's 2022 bond referendum. Just a couple of points about the order for tonight. I'm going to walk through a relatively brief PowerPoint presentation, and then we will be taking questions at the end, maybe 15 or 20 minutes at the most for the presentation. You can be submitting your questions as we move through. We've got a lot of talented staff in the room that'll be collecting those, and then we will jump into those at the end. I won't be taking questions as we run through the actual deck, but we will stay as long as we need to make sure everyone's questions are answered. So with that, we'll jump right into to the material. So again, tonight is all about some background and information on the 2022 bond referendum. So first and foremost, what is a bond referendum? It's not a term that you hear or we use every single day. In fact, we only do this in Chesterfield County about every 8 to 10 years. So the last one we did was in 2013. And many of you might remember that, or you might be new to the community. So just a little bit of background in this first chapter of the presentation as to what exactly a bond referendum is. And the simplest way to explain it is the county's long-range capital plan. And that really implies that this is the plan by which we plan infrastructure that supports county services for the next decade. So we take the plan to the voters on the ballot to approve it, and that does two things. Obviously, it's a democratic process and has community buy-in. But when we do it legally on the ballot, it allows us to access the lowest cost of financing for those projects. And that's really, really important for a number of reasons, and we'll touch on those as we go through. But at the end of the day, we believe in these improvements that we're going to walk through tonight. We will touch on every single project that's part of the referendum. And our goal in getting these projects on the ground is to do it at the lowest possible cost. And simply put, the way to access that, the way to do it at the lowest possible cost is to put it on the referendum and to have that special financing. We'll, again, dive into that in just a second. So the referendum for us in total would be an authorization of up to $540 million in bonds spread across 4 categories. Again, we're going to go through the specifics there, but at a high level, those categories are schools, libraries, parks, and public safety, which has 2 subcategories, police and fire. There's one question here in Chesterfield County, and we will spend some time on that question and how we got to that in just a second. That being said, one of the questions we've gotten regularly as we've been out on the trail talking to folks about the referendum is about the $540 million, because it is a big number. But know the following things about that. That is an authorization to go into indebtedness for these specific projects. It has nothing to do with operating funds. It does not cover any expenditures that have been previously made. This is the mortgage payment on the list of facilities that we will go through in the middle portion of this presentation. Also, we don't go out and borrow, if approved, the $540 million overnight. We would split those sales of those bonds into relatively even amounts, again, over that 8 to 10 year window. So that certainly makes it a much more affordable proposition. And the last chapter of tonight's presentation will talk specifically about how we plan to finance this and afford it and fold it into our larger county budget. So I mentioned earlier that this is the lowest cost way, the cheapest way to provide vital infrastructure here in Chesterfield County. And what that really means at the end of the day is we're able to borrow at the lowest possible rates, and we're able to do that because of our outstanding credit rating that we have as a municipality. Each one of you watching at home has 3 credit scores from the 3 individual agencies that are out there. You go out to get a car loan or a mortgage payment, you're going to get your credit report from those 3. The same thing holds for us as a jurisdiction, as a locality. 3 different agencies, but they all give us a credit score, and we have the highest possible score from each one of those. And because of that, our credit worthiness, just like if your personal credit score is 800 or above, you're going to get a better rate than somebody that's below that. Same thing holds for us. So we can finance these projects that are, if approved, at that lowest possible rate. What's on the screen now is just a little example of somebody who would be borrowing at our level versus somebody a notch or two below us, just to give some context to what I'm talking about. But you save $23 million in interest cost over the duration of these bonds between someone going out in the market where we're at, again, versus somebody that's a notch or two below us. So that's real money. Those are dollars that would just be spent on interest that we could redirect into other operating priorities that we know are important for this community. So that's really the crux of this. We want to make sure we keep those interest payments as low as possible, and we free up those dollars to do other things that this community needs. A big part of any referendum discussion is, like I mentioned, we do this every 8 to 10 years, but have we followed through on those set of promises that we put out before? And we have a very good track record of doing so. The 2013 lineup is listed here on the slide before you, and you can see a heavy school package, $300+ million. All of these projects have been completed, are now open, and serving students throughout Chesterfield County. A very successful package executed by the school division. There was one county project, the emergency communications system, which is scheduled to be wrapped up this fiscal year. So we don't want to come back to the voters and ask for additional approvals, additional authorizations if we haven't followed through on the last set of promises, and I'm pleased to report that we have done that. That being said, we're talking about a referendum, but that's not the only way that we put improvements on the ground in Chesterfield County. You're going to see a project lineup in just a second, and undoubtedly, if we could flash forward 10 years, there's going to be other things that this community needs over the next decade from an infrastructure perspective that we can't anticipate today, and we have to have capacity, flexibility, and remain nimble to be able to meet those additional needs. So we have other sources. So you're going to see 75 or 80% of what's going to happen over the next decade, but we have other avenues to pursue needs that arise. I think see a few examples of that on the screen here. Mosley Elementary out in the western 360 portion of the county is a great example of that. That's an elementary school that was not part of the 2013 package. A lot of residential growth out there, certainly in the Magnolia Green area. That community takes off coming out of the recession, and the boards were able to work together to put that facility on the ground and meet those capacity needs out in that portion of the county. And we will stay in position to be able to do that as well as we move forward through this next 10-year period. How are these projects selected? A number of ways. First and foremost, I would say that there's been no referendum, really no financial plan of any kind that's ever had as much thought and community dialogue going into it as this plan. And that's really by and large the result of the pandemic itself. We thought and we were ready to do this package of improvements in 2020. Obviously COVID derailed that, but we kept on working, kept on having conversations with the community to make sure that we had the right list of projects and we best represented all of the priorities of this community. So we used that time wisely. Up here on the screen, you see a screenshot of our Stratus model that provides us another layer to sort of evaluate and make decisions. Again, it's not the end-all be-all, but it helps. We have intuition about what the needs are. Stratus really helps us look at where future demand might be occurring. We're using this right now in the school system pretty heavily, is also in the fire service, and it just gives us another layer to make sure that we are, particularly on capacity needs, on growth needs, we are putting facilities at the right time in the right places. And then, lastly, we're also looking at economic considerations. We'll see that in particular when we get to the police department package in just a slide or two. So as I mentioned, $540 million total authorization, broken across these four categories. Schools having the largest number, that's really just a factor of the unit cost of an individual school. High school nowadays costing north of $100 million. So project-wise, number-wise, it's a very balanced referendum proposal. It's just that schools, by their nature, cost a little bit more. The other categories really all, hovering around that $40 million mark. Public safety, again, police and fire, and almost evenly split down the middle at about 40 apiece. Another consideration that we take into mind when we're putting these packages together is to make sure we have a geographic balance, to make sure we are paying attention to all the communities, all the corners, all the corridors of Chesterfield County. It's a big place, over 400 square miles. This is really important when you have a large community to make sure that no corner, no community is left out. And so here you see on this map all of the projects that we have on this proposal, just plotted with a pinpoint, and you can see a really nice coverage. The only area that really isn't represented is the very rural belly of the county south of Pocahontas State Park, where you see one little conservation area project out there. But where the population is, we have a very, very nice spread of the proposed projects. So this middle chapter we'll walk through, and we will hit on very quickly the lineup of projects amongst those 4 or 5 categories. All the information, real detailed stuff, is on the county's website at chesterfield.gov/bond. You can go and you can get, again, very detailed ideas about square footage estimates and other things in terms of these specific projects. I'm just going to hit on it from a thematic perspective as I walk through. Here's the school lineup, and again, you're going to hear me repeat the same phrase again and again, looking for a balance between taking care of old and addressing new, addressing the capacity needs. We're a growing community, and in all of these categories almost, we have to make sure that we are paying attention to both of those areas, and schools has done a nice job developing their package with that concept in mind. You see 2 new schools out in the Western 360 area, a high school and elementary school. The boards have already partnered on a middle school that would be the companion to make out that set of 3. That project is already in motion, not part of this, not reliant on the vote. That's where the most capacity needs were amongst the 3. Again, these 2 projects would follow that out generally in the upper Magnolia Green area. We've also got some older facilities on here. Grange Hall, Midlothian Middle, hovering around 100 years. Age, both of those buildings. They've certainly outlived their expected use, and we would come back in and replace those 2 schools as part of this package. Thomasdale expansion, a little bit of both. This would reunite the Thomasdale campus into one building and potentially open up some capacity at the old Chester Middle School building. And then you see, again, really a continuation from that 2013 concept. We're going in replacing older elementary schools. It's been very successful, not only from a school perspective, but it's had a revitalizing effect in those areas, in those communities, in those neighborhoods. We've seen folks move back in, and it's helped to jumpstart, particularly younger families, moving back into some of these older areas of the community. So we would do that at A.M. Davis and at Bensley Elementary. Libraries, again, that same balance. Western Holt Street, where the population growth is largely centered, a brand new branch. You see that the yellow dot on the far left-hand side of your screen. There's no library on the western third of the county, so we would add that service point out there. We would come back in at the Enon Library, really the opposite end of the county's smallest facility in the system, 4,000 square feet. Built a brand new facility closer to the 20,000 square foot modern standard, and then expand the Ettrick Library down in the bottom southern portion of the county from its current 8,000 square foot footprint, again, up to closer to 25,000 square feet. These improvements are in addition to the Midlothian rebuild, which is underway. Again, not part of this package, but just reinforcing that we are continually working on infrastructure. This isn't representative of everything we're doing. The projects we show on the screen are the ones included as part of the proposed referendum. Parks and Rec, also a nice blend. I think coming out of the COVID period, as we had community dialogue about what should be part of this package, there was a heavier emphasis than prior referendums on parks and recreation because folks really felt a renewed interest and connection with the natural environment, and we wanted to reflect that as part of this package. So you see conservation area access, the middle project there. That's really representative of 4 unique projects in different portions of the county where the county has obtained some beautiful tracts of land. And this opens those tracts of land up to the community really through some walking trails and passive recreation, some gentle parking that we would put in. Again, making sure that we maintain that conservation feel, but letting folks get in there and enjoy those nice tracts of land that we've been able to obtain. Also, a heavy emphasis on water access. We were putting in a new boat launch at Fallen Creek, and where it meets the James River. We would put some companion improvements in here with this $4 million, and then a brand new boat launch down in the southern tip of the county in the Rivers Bend area, new James River boat launch down there. And then the last portion of this package here really builds on our sports tourism efforts that have been so important to the county over the last 10 years. It certainly has provided us revenue diversification as well as some really top-notch world-class facilities for the community to use. So just continuing that effort. Horner Park would have some companion improvements, general park improvements, as well as a softball complex that would serve the community and be a source for tournaments and outside revenue to the county. And same at River City, we would build out the rest of the fields, as well as some destination recreation type things such as a splash pad, a destination playground, and some walking trails to make sure that that's a facility that interests and attracts and is beneficial to the entire community. Again, public safety split into police and fire, and I mentioned economic interest being a driver for how we select projects. You're taking a look there at the Eastern Midlothian Station, the Fallen Creek Station, which is tucked back off of Midlothian Turnpike. That's a former Bill's Barbecue location. Not ideal for the modern police force. So the concept here would be to, A, build a precinct for all of our zones, all of our 4 zones that the police department currently has, and do it in a modern way that meets the needs of the department, but also has a more community engagement built into it, something that's a little more prominent for the community, something that serves the needs of all involved. So we would have 4 stations, the Stonebridge area station up there, as you see at 8.8, that would be the replacement for Fallen Creek and would go at the Spring Rock Green property that the county has recently obtained. We would add another one in the far Western 60 out in the Westchester Commons area thereabouts, replacement of Chester and the Western Hull Street station, which is right now tucked into some small shop space right there at Woodlake. The fire package is really focused on 2 things: renovating, expanding 2 of our busier stations at Clover Hill and Dutch Gap. And then we've got 2 of these older, really volunteer buildings that have continued to house apparatus for the last several years, but really have moved past their useful life. You see the Chester station that's pictured there, and it even becomes difficult to get the doors open on modern apparatus. When they built these buildings, it was just not envisioned for what the fire service would look like today. We've been doing this elsewhere in the county, again, in other improvements, but I think really sort of set the stage for what we would like to do here. The Midlothian station's been rebuilt in a very similar fashion. That's now operational really as of just the last several days. So if you haven't had a chance to ride by there and see that, that's the type of thing we would like to replicate. The Matoaka station also being rebuilt, and then we would continue that effort through the referendum at the Chester and Ettrick stations. So final chapter of this story is really about how do we pay for this? How does it fit into the overall financial plan and needs of the county, and what impact might it have on taxpayers? It's a very important part of the story. So what is pictured up here right now is our collective mortgage payment as county and schools. So when we go out and we sell bonds, we do that as one organization, and that's what you're seeing here. So this is principal and interest payments on all of the outstanding bonds that we currently have. This is not anything that we would potentially sell as part of the referendum. We are on the second peach bar there at about $95 million. But really what I want you to focus on is the shape of this overall graph that shows that 95 falling off to below $60 million just really in a handful of years. And that is representative of the way that Chesterfield County deals with indebtedness. We pay off our bonds on a very, very aggressive basis. If you looked at the state and certainly at the federal companion charts, they would not be shaped like this. I'm sure of that. But we attack our debt on a very aggressive basis. We pay at level principal, and what that means is if you consider this through the lens of your home mortgage, you get the same payment or thereabouts every single month. For us, it's very different. We want to keep interest costs as minimal as possible, and we want to make sure that the level of outstanding total indebtedness is as minimal as possible. So we split the principal, whatever we borrow, whatever that total amount is, we divide it evenly over 20 years, and so we pay it off evenly over that period. That gives us this nice cascading effect, the 95 to the 58. And what that really provides us, if we flip to this next slide, is this capacity. It provides these gaps each and every year as we pay off additional series of bonds. It gives us room, it gives us space to sell new bonds without putting pressure on the overall mortgage payment that the county is ultimately responsible for. So the peach shape at the bottom represents what you just saw on the prior slide, all the existing debt payments that we make. The green is modeling of the $540 million that we're talking about here tonight. And you can see it lays right on top of that very nicely, and with very minimal growth, very minimal impact in the overall mortgage payment. We really want this to be, you see two dotted lines toward the top. We want to follow that 2% growth, 2.5% growth line, because we want to make sure that our mortgage payment really stays proportionate to our overall spending. That's a good measure, a good sense, a good gauge that we are continuing to invest appropriately in our physical plant. So the point of this slide is to say we can go out and borrow $540 million and have very minimal impact on our overall financial plan. So why is that good? Why is that important? Well, there are no new taxes as part of this plan, as part of this proposal to pay for that because of what you just saw in the prior slide. Nor is there any plans or any need to raise existing revenue sources. So no new sources, no pressure on any existing sources. And thirdly, and again, we mentioned this a little bit earlier, if we can keep interest costs as low as possible, that means that it frees up other dollars that can go into operational priorities. It's one thing to say we can afford this package of bonds. It's another thing to say we can afford it and still have the ability to take care of other needs. We all know that we need additional teachers and first responders, and we have to maintain pay and inflationary pressures and all of those things. So this proposal, the way it's structured, positions us to be able to handle all of those items. The ballot question itself, again, Chesterfield County, we have one question. We have one county. We have one set of needs. We have been doing this for 5 years. It's as democratic as you could possibly get in terms of the process to get here. We've had just literally hundreds of conversations with the public of which should be part of this package, and we believe one question that represents all of those interests is the right way to go. So this is exact language you'll see when you walk into the ballot box. And all you will see as part of this is the authorization up to the 540, and it gives us authorization to spend it across those four categories that you see here. The specific projects are not part of the legal question, but that's why we go out and have these conversations with the community. And then just to make sure everyone's very clear, if you vote yes, you are voting yes, and you are giving us the authorization to move forward with the projects and allowing us to access that low cost of capital. Community engagement, we've been out doing this now for quite a while, and the real reason for that is voting on this package begins next Friday, believe it or not, with early voting. It's the first time we've had that with a referendum, but we are doing our Facebook Live tonight. We've got another meeting in Dale on Monday, I believe it is, and then we are at Ettrick-Matoaka next week, and another Facebook Live closer to the election on October 17th. But in between then, we are out almost every night of the week. Doing community meetings. We are happy to meet you in your neighborhood association, civic group, PTA, whatever group you might be part of. We can send out a team and do this on a more individualized basis and focus on a particular geographic area of the county if that's what the need is. Again, chesterfield.gov/bond has all of these materials. We have a very, very good video series that helps explain all this, something easy to send around. We have a podcast and a blog series that go through the specifics of the projects and all sorts of other information on the website, and we update that and add to it almost on a daily basis. So that's the best place to go to stay in touch. Voting information, like I mentioned, starts next Friday. We have 5 places around the county where you can go and do early voting, but we will continue on our informational campaign all the way up until November 8th on actual election day. And with that, we're going to turn it back over and see if we have any questions that we can run through. So, got a couple questions popped up here. Any way the county can separate the bonds on the referendum? Like I mentioned, we gave a lot of thought to that, and I know that they do it a little bit differently in different localities, and that's certainly understandable. But again, for us, it's one community, it's one set of needs. When we pass an annual operating budget, we do it as one collective package, and we really represented and carried that same idea into the overall referendum. All right, I think putting it in as one package really, again, represents the overall needs of the community, and that's the way we decided to structure it. So we must have done a thorough job. We're a little bit light on the questions. We'll give it a few more minutes here to see if any other questions trickle in, and certainly even after the broadcast ends, we'll continue to monitor Facebook and all of our social media accounts to see if any other questions trickle in, and we're happy to get back to you on an individualized basis. All right. Well, I'll leave up on the screen our sort of schedule of upcoming events. We'll have another update that'll be available for the community at our board meeting next Wednesday, updating everyone on things that we've been working on. But tonight is by no means your last opportunity. Staff is always here to answer questions, whether through Facebook or if you go to the website. All of our contact information is out there if you'd like for us to come out and talk to your group, or just email us a question or have a conversation. We are happy to do that as well. So with that, we will wish you a good night. We appreciate everyone's time and attention, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.